listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God! Give away!
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William. Joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And on this episode, we'll be discussing Christine, the 1983 John Carpenter horror movie that was an adaptation of a Stephen King book. So that was the collaboration between those two back before Stephen King. Well, Stephen King adaptations now are all the rage with It and Gerald's Game. And then
Were they not at the time though?
they
Stephen
were.
King's just been
They
popular
were. They
for-
were.
yeah.
'Cause you had like The Shining and stuff like that.
Cujo.
Yeah, so you had like an era where the quality ranged, because I think in the 90s or when you got some of the lower grade Stephen King adaptations.
Man.
Then you had Creepshow where he wrote that with George Romero directing. So you had like Stephen King at this point was already an establishment in horror and a huge name and a driving force.
Stephen King's been relevant for what, almost 30, 40 years.
Well, the
as far as everything.
Well, the
in
Stephen
all
King
forms of-
recommendation helped movies like Evil Dead find an audience.
Yeah.
And so that era, you had John Carpenter who had done Halloween and The Fog and Assault on Precinct 13, and he had done The Thing, which even though now it's a lot of people's favorite movie and everybody thinks it's a revered classic, it was a bomb when it came out. So John Carpenter, he'd done Escape from New York, but he was coming into Christine off of The Thing, which was a bomb, thinking, that this would be a movie that would kind of turn things around, and this movie didn't make that much money either.
Yeah, I think he said too, like he did this as a job. Like he basically said, "Hey, this wasn't like something I was passionate about.
Yeah.
I need it worked because the thing was a bomb, and I
Yeah.
needed to get things back on track." Which, even though he's very open and honest about his motivations a lot of times, especially when it comes to money and all that. But despite it being just a job, it was not a sloppy job. I don't think, and that's I respect him for that. Even though he is very open, maybe like, "Hey, I'm not super passionate about this thing." Like, it at least seems like a lot of effort was put forth on this film.
It didn't look like it was called in or phoned in. But before we discuss Christine, we'll go through some things we've been watching. So one thing I'll talk about quickly, because haven't had a chance to watch too much recently because you have like the holiday weekend and all this stuff. And I'm moving jobs or like going to a different department in my current job and all kinds of... Derek, don't make noise.
I'm not making noise.
But the thing I watched TV, so Legion, the FX series, like that show has been my jam this year. Like, it's one of those things where I think it's kind of like Twin Peaks: The Return just really primed me for kind of obscure storytelling with a lot of non sequitur sequences and kind of sidetracks and different things. Because season 2 of Legion, so season 1. Something where it wasn't super straightforward storytelling to begin with. There's a lot of kind of metaphorical storytelling and things like that. And season 2's kind of even gone further down that route and had episodes that were kind of like just looks into alternate realities that could have existed if things had gone differently. So it's just a show that's kind of gone, further and further out there. And I like it just because there's so little else out there that's kind of doing that. Because like Twin Peaks: The Return, like, not saying quality wise they're similar or anything like that. It's just with Twin Peaks: The Return, there was just so much out there stuff that you just kind of had to sit through.
Yeah.
And this show, I think, like Legion does similar things because it's based on an X-Men character, but there's very few things about this that resemble any other superhero property because this season they've had, like, one of the big fight scenes was on the astral plane between two psychics, a dance-off in a club. So there's things like that. Where, it's not your traditional superhero. There's not people flying around and shooting balls of power out of their hands and flames and stuff.
So not Dragon Ball Z?
It's not Dragon Ball Z. It's not the Fantastic Four. It's not even like the X-Men movies. It's more of just,
Its own thing.
somebody who, is a character that's super powerful, but their powers are mostly shown like on the astral plane by a psychic. So it's a show where I've really enjoyed what they've done with this season. And I hope they don't cancel. I know the ratings haven't been great. Hopefully they'll keep it around for another season or so because I think there's a lot of places it could go.
I think the problem, though, even if they did get it back another season, which I have not watching the season yet, the main actor in it, I think he's starting to get pretty big.
Well, Dan Stevens is in a lot of stuff.
I think the problem would be, even if they do a third season, would be keeping him.
I mean, I think he would want to. I think contractually they could do it because TV is steady money because you make more money from a TV series than you do a movie. So I think a lot of times actors prioritize getting those paychecks. But Dan Stevens was in a small movie like The Guest that kind of established him as not just the guy from Downton Abbey. And then he was in Beauty and the Beast as the Beast. And he's been in other, he was in some Liam Neeson movie and a few other things. So, he's getting consistent work. It's just this is a show where, that's a character I would like to see show up in the movies at some point.
Well, let me ask you this. Given what you've seen, throw Apocalypse out. But, with Deadpool, that series Logan, and this, do you like the trajectory Fox is doing with those properties as far as, maybe being a little darker, a little weird, a little different, whereas you take and look at what they're doing with the Defenders on Netflix. I know they're different, but...
Well, I think that they're just... if you've seen the Netflix, or not Netflix, the FX series Fargo, so...
I've watched some of it.
So that show, the showrunner of that, Noah Hawley, is the one who's much more of the voice on Legion than anything else. So it's more of, if you're into his work, then you'll really like the show. And if you're not really into the kind of obscure, odd storytelling, then it's not really going to land. So I think they're just letting more creators have control of things versus the properties running it, which is cool. And just the show I really like. And I think if you were a big fan of Twin Peaks and Twin Peaks: The Return, or season 3, I think it's what it's called now since the DVDs are out, Legion season 2 and 1, I've enjoyed a lot. It has a lot of just kind of out there concepts. So that's the show where I get done watching it, I immediately go and read articles about it and read up on it and
cool.
Look things up. So that to me always tells me how much I enjoyed something, how much I read about it or think about it after the fact. And that's just something where I've, really been into this season, even though I know that some people dropped off because it's gone even more out there. But to me, I just want more things that aren't sticking to kind of predictable trajectories and just trying to do something different. So that's something I'd recommend checking out because I think the first season you can watch on Hulu if you have that service. And the second season, I've just been watching with the FX On Demand app, but I'm not sure. I don't think it's on any of the streaming services yet. But I'm assuming it will be once the season ends.
It's a weird trajectory because with so many different networks and venues and streaming services for shows like this to take risk out there, it also comes with the fact that now there's so much other stuff. There's other shows competing for time. You know what I mean? It's almost like a double-edged sword. Hey, there's more opportunities for shows like this, but then again, there's a lot more competition. You know what I mean?
There's stuff on Netflix that I'm going to watch at some point. I just have not spent the time yet.
Yeah, for sure. That's what me too. If there weren't, I don't watch a lot of shows. You know what I mean? I watch comedy. I'll watch comedies consistently.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I haven't like dug into it. But also too, it's like, oh, I want to watch this movie. Well, I have like a couple hours here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do I want to watch this movie or maybe watch a couple episodes of a show and not get to watch anything else again on it for another few days? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those push and pull things with streaming services and how available everything is.
Netflix is going to have like 700 original shows and movies per year or something.
Yeah.
Which Netflix, give us money to make something, please.
Yeah, they throw money and everything else.
But Dick, did you watch anything?
I mean, I've been watching Portlandia again, but it's
Put a
been,
bird on it.
Yeah, put a bird on it. It's been such a weird, I've been so busy, so if I do get time, I'll watch that. I'm really going to watch the movie Revenge. I'm going to try to watch that later on.
Yeah, I meant to watch that. I just didn't have time.
Because I've heard a lot of good things about it. And
do we want to maybe make that the next podcast? One of the next ones?
Well, I think Hereditary comes out too, so you look at the schedule. But we definitely need to cover that. I know, one of our friends, like Evan, he had mentioned something to me about how it was good. And he recommended we watch it. And I was going to this week, and it wasn't on any. It was like on a rental service for like $6.99.
Yeah.
And then I was going to rent it. I just didn't have time because I wanted to see the new movies in theaters before I got spoiled on them. Mm-hmm. And then I just with the holiday weekend and stuff. But yeah, we'll definitely cover that in some form for the.
I really want to watch it because I've heard a lot of good things about it, but just kind of those things you said. I haven't had the time, so if I'm gonna watch something, I got like an hour just to throw on Portlandia.
Yeah,
and watch
yeah. That's what I don't want to spend. Like if have my daughter, I don't want to spend like $7 on something
Yeah.
that I can only half watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I haven't watched it either. I put on Toxic Avenger 2 because I'm like,
Yeah.
I can half watch this
Yeah,
and
'cause you
enjoy
miss it. You're not,
Yeah.
You don't miss out.
Yeah.
When it's something you're not paying out of pocket to watch, and it's something that like if there's something I actually want to invest time in, I want to sit down, phone off, and watch it straight through.
Exactly. Anything else, Derek?
I got nothing.
So speaking of Twin Peaks, I watched Showgirls. I'm excited to watch that.
Where they have sex in a pool and it's really weird.
Yeah, just because, there's been some people talk like about how, I don't know, that's just, it's starting to get some more swell of support, that film, directed by Verhoeven?
Paul Verhoeven,
Yeah.
so director of RoboCop.
Yeah.
But that movie kind of killed the career of Kyle MacLachlan for a while.
Yeah.
And what's her name? Elizabeth Berkley. So formerly from Saved by the Bell. That ruined her career. And that movie hurt a lot of people involved in it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, her acting in that is...
Over the top.
Yeah.
If you only watch it for the sex scene, you should, because it is the most
Where they have sex in a-
ridiculous. It looks like there's seizure.
They're having sex in a pool in a way that I don't think anyone's ever had sex in a pool
ever.
before.
I don't think anybody's ever had sex like that ever. I just don't.
It almost reminds me a little bit of like a Scarface at Showgirls. You know what I mean? Like, there's something about it I did like, though.
I think that
because they were trying to tell like a big story.
Yeah.
But it was just so many ridiculous
The rise
things.
and fall of someone in this kind of cutthroat, terrible
like
industry.
I appreciate the goal they were trying to achieve with this. And actually, the ridiculousness makes it really watchable still. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can still watch it and enjoy it. It is not really boring.
But anytime I think of Kyle MacLachlan, I just think of him as Mr. Mayor now. So like it just
From Portlandia.
Yeah, from Portlandia. So it's just really weird seeing him in other things. It's like expecting to be that. Really
The first thing I always saw him in was Flintstones movie.
yeah, so
I
like,
would love that
he
movie.
was
He's
Yeah.
the villain. I love that
Yeah.
movie
the
still.
first Flintstones movie, talk about something that was a hit at the time it came out, but left almost no cultural impact.
It did on me.
Well, I mean, like if you look now, the only reason I even remembered it existed was on Netflix at some point. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, and because it had John Goodman, Rick Moranis, Rosie O'Donnell, Kyle MacLachlan, Halle Berry, and it was a big hit when it came out. And
I remember McDonald's. There was tons of promotion with that.
Man.
I may have got the VHS from McDonald's, or at least I got the VHS at some point. I bought the
Yeah.
CD. I've watched that film probably, I don't know, at least 30 or 40 times.
I had like the worst nightmare of my life to that movie, so I can't watch it anymore.
What?
I don't even remember. I just remember like his eye got knocked out or something in my dream, so I don't watch it
Fred
anymore.
Flintstone's eye?
Yeah, Fred Flintstone. Yeah,
So it's one of those things too, though, where I think in today's world, the modern day kids have almost no recognition of Flintstones. They know them from either the Vitamins or Fruity Pebbles cereal.
Well-
they don't really know the cartoon because so many things have
not on
supplanted it. I mean, I'm sure it's on some of those streaming services.
You can watch it on
or-
Boomerang.
Yeah. But kids have really turned away from a lot of those things from the 60s because they want shiny 3D animated stuff. I know a lot of people who said their kids will only watch 3D animated and don't watch hand
We also forgot that Elizabeth Taylor was in. Like,
Yes,
I mean, that movie, you talk about the movie that has like
Yeah.
John Goodman, Rick Moranis, Elizabeth Perkins, Rosie O'Donnell, Kyle MacLachlan, Holly
I mean,
Berry, Elizabeth Taylor.
I know people
Rick
don't think it's that
Moranis.
good. I do think I think some of the writing is very funny in it. Like, there's one line that I think Wilma is talking to her mom, Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
And it says something, Elizabeth Taylor, I think, is saying something like, of all the things your dad sacrificed for you, money, something. She's like, your brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just like, there's so many like little good jokes in that film. I like that movie a lot. I just watched it recently again.
Yeah.
Well, it made 40 on a budget of 46 million. It made 340
Yeah.
worldwide.
Yeah, so
So, and like, I remember there being like,
I don't know
Happy
what-
Meals or associated
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tie-ins. So it was a big deal when it came out. It's just after it went away, they like 6 years later made a sequel that was more of a direct-to-video deal.
yeah, and like none of the people returned.
Yeah.
Viva La. It had I think the actor in it. Oh, who was it?
There's one of the Baldwins.
Yeah, it's one of the Baldwins. Is
And then what's her name from Rocky and Bullwinkle and Third Rock from the Sun plays Wilma.
yeah.
What's her name from 30 Rock? And
Jenna Malone.
Yeah, Jenna Malone from. Oh, is her name Jenna Malone? Her name's that in the show.
No, in the show she's no, it's Jane Krakowski.
Yeah.
In the show she's Jenna. I'm blanking. My memory is Jim Maroney.
Jen Maroney.
Was
Okay.
on 30 Rock. Yeah, so it was Kristen Johnson, and then Mark Addy was Fred Flintstone, and he was also Robert Baratheon on Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I forgot.
It's just funny that the movie is such a huge box office success. It took them 6 years to make a sequel, and they got nobody to return.
Well, I think they had already seen that the impact of that movie had kind of wavered.
Yeah.
And that while it made money and sold a lot of merch at the time, the cartoon, because Julie works at the Louisville Zoo every year where she's usually Princess Leia, and then she's done some other stuff. I think last year she was also Wonder Woman one time, and then also like a Sleepy Hollow. But it's like in the fall for trick or treating, they have different actors dressed as different characters, and kids come and get candy and go through the zoo. And she said a lot of what drives the interest of the children, that drives what characters they have there, is not the movies coming out. It is the associated cartoons. Because a lot of times, even though Black Panther is a huge hit and kids like it, the more influential thing to them is not the movie version of the Black Panther, but the cartoon version that shows up in all the animated series they're allowed to watch. So that, influences the characters they go with, the look of the characters they go with. And two, because like Wonder Woman, even though it's not really obscene or anything, the costume is a relatively short skirt and like a halter top type deal. And also the fact this is in October in Kentucky, so it can range from 30 degrees to 100 degrees.
Yeah.
But they don't want the short skirt version of the costume. They want the one that has pants. But that's also the version that's in most of the kids' cartoons.
Yeah.
So the cartoons are what drive a lot of the interest. And if the Flintstones cartoons, if they only had the old ones, not new ones, a lot of kids see something that doesn't look as new and shiny as the new cartoon and just reject it out of hand because it doesn't look like what they're watching now.
What about Flintstones Kids? They can just watch that.
Yeah, the new show, the Flintstones Kids.
No, that's from like the 80s.
I know, I was joking, though.
But,
Because it is a newer version of it.
So I think the fact that
pup
they're,
named Scooby-Doo.
unless I'm just completely out of the loop, I don't think there are new versions of the Flintstones
No, I don't think
cartoons to
there are.
drive interest in younger kids.
Now, I think Scooby-Doo still exists.
Yeah, there is new versions of
Like
that.
Scooby-Doo is internal.
The other day I was in
Internal.
Walmart and I saw a new Scooby-Doo movie, but it was just Daphne and Velma. Like
Live
that's when you
action
don't
or
have the budget
animated?
for a CGI dog. It was literally just about them two, like a prequel movie.
It's about them finding love and I don't know where they're from.
Yeah, so I love that Flintstones movie. We went from Showgirls to Flintstones.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm okay with that.
Kyle MacLachlan.
And I'm okay with that. The other movie I watched was somebody mentioned Miyazaki, from Studio Ghibli.
Jigglypuff?
I don't know. What are some of the movies they've made? Ponyo.
Totoro.
Yeah,
and
My Neighbor.
Spirited Away.
Yes.
And
So I heard the first film he directed was Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, I think, from 1979. Have you guys ever watched any Lupin III before?
I don't think so.
I used to watch it a lot on Cartoon Network, like Adult Swim, So I watched that film. I loved it. But I also love Lupin. He's basically like a thief, kind of. But he is good-hearted mostly. So I watched that film and then immediately kind of bought like 3 other Studio Ghibli films just because I'd also saw Ponyo, which I thought was pretty good. So I'm going to watch some of those soon. But yeah, that was pretty much it that I can think of as far as movies go.
All right, so I guess we move into our discussion review of Christine, the 1983 John Carpenter adaptation of a Stephen King book. And this is a movie. We'll do full spoilers throughout, just because it's Christine. It's
you know what
1983.
happens.
We all did. We all watch it on Crackle for free.
I did.
I have
So-
been on Blu-ray.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on Crackle to
DVD,
watch for free if you want via those apps, or you can purchase it on Blu-ray, DVD from anywhere. I'm sure there's 1,000 versions
Well, like
of it.
around Halloween, they had like all Stephen King's stuff at Walmart, like really cheap.
Yeah.
So we bought a bunch of them.
Well, because I had gotten recently too. I got the Steelbook version of Assault on Precinct 13 and Prince of Darkness.
I like
and,
Prince of
and
Darkness.
we've done a lot of John Carpenter movies. We try to kind of space them out now when we go back to John Carpenter movies because we've covered a pretty good number of them, but there's still a few we haven't gotten around to. But Christine is one that is the distinction being it was a Stephen King adaptation, and it wasn't because he had the Kurt Russell movies like Escape from New York, The Thing,
Overboard.
Big Trouble in Little China. But
wish he directed Overboard.
Christine is one where, had nothing really as a similarity to Halloween, but it was going back to, like teenage characters and not like grown adult characters in different situations. And
This is the horniest of all John Carpenter films that I've seen.
yeah,
Like it was very much a lot of sex talk. And another thing too, they always talk about how, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is secretly a gay movie.
very homoerotic
This
undertones.
film seems more even overtly than that. I don't know if you because his best friend
Yeah.
is
There's
he
some there.
seems like they're very close in a different way. Like his friend's in trouble, which not that you shouldn't do this, but he passes up a woman, that's trying to throw herself at him. And then he even says something at some point like, "What are you, a homo?" Like almost, I don't know. I've never seen any talk about that with this film. I haven't looked it up. Like I haven't searched it. But just watching it,
The way you said that homo thing reminds me of Troll 2. He's like, "You trying to turn me to a homo?"
yeah, homo was a big thing in movies back in the 80s.
Well, what's funny is watching this movie, because I had seen it on TV at certain points, like on AMC, Fear
Yeah.
Fest, and different things. I think this is the first time I've watched it from beginning to end in the unedited version, which
same here.
there wasn't a ton that they had to cut for TV,
No.
really. But watching the movie for the first time in a few years, I did think there really is some pretty strong undertones, like that Arnie and Dennis might be into each other.
Yeah, or at least Dennis is the friend, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
at least Dennis seems to maybe be into Arnie. I don't know.
But then, the other thing too, though, is that just a representation of a healthy male relationship?
Yeah.
that's not saddled with toxic.
It's just it's a type of relationship you typically don't see in films like this.
Especially not anymore.
Because usually you would have the loner that had no friends,
Yeah.
or you'd have the jock that's all just douche bros, and they're all
no real
terrible
friend.
people.
Yeah, and they're not actually real good friends.
So you typically have those dynamics, but in this movie to have the kind of nerdy smart guy whose friend is popular and things like that was refreshing to see.
Yeah.
Like a positive influence. So it's not just terrible douche bros. It's the jock that actually has a brain and is nice to people, and then the kind of nerdy guy. So I guess before we get too long in, the synopsis is: a nerdish boy buys a strange car with an evil mind of its own, and his nature starts to change to reflect it. And I think in the book that, not having read it, just reading the synopsis, that the prior owner's spirit is in the car, which is what makes it evil.
Yeah, that's what I understand,
As opposed
too.
to the movie makes it so that the car itself is what's evil because it kills somebody in the production facility.
Yeah.
And kind of goes
It's more
from
of a
there.
maximum overdrive deal.
Yeah, and you said the movie starts out with Arnie being kind of picked on and bullied by somebody that looks kind of like they're doing a John Travolta thing if he was evil in Grease.
Well, what about the John Travolta version of Carrie? Because he was in Carrie.
Yeah.
For me too, yeah. Like a lot of people, I think it was one of the friends of the bullies. Maybe one of the dudes looks just like Spike Jonze, and then Arnie's friend kind of looks like Armie Hammer or a Paul Walker type.
Yeah, Paul Walker.
And then the lead Armie kind of looks like Nathan Fielder. I would think you could probably recast this whole movie and still we end up at right about the same place, but some vastly different performances.
Yeah, so it's basically they come across, or Arnie sees a car off the side of the street and he wants to buy it. And it's an old car he needs to fix up. And he's like, the owner of it's weird and says that his brother owned it but died. So then you have where he buys a car and takes it to a shop where you leave your car there, but you can work on it.
So essentially, this starts off like any episode of American Pickers, except it ends in murder.
Yeah. And, you have the element of Arnie as he gets,
more murder.
as he rebuilds the car, makes it look nice. Then he starts to be cool and dress nicer and then get girls.
He's like George Costanza when he gets that car.
Yeah,
And he
the
starts
LeBaron.
wearing- yeah. No. Was it the LeBaron?
Yeah, it was the John Malkovich
When he starts wearing the jacket and everything.
John
yeah.
Voight.
John Voight, yeah.
And it wasn't John Voight, the actor,
Yeah.
that owned it. It was John Voight, the dentist.
Yeah.
But it's what is it? It's a 1958 Plymouth Fury is the car. And Arnie starts restoring the car. And, he starts kind of snubbing his friend Dennis, and then you find out that he's the one that's going on a date with the new girl that's the hottest girl in school.
And again, he's playing football, and it's like he's almost heartbroken to see him with her almost. You know what I mean? Like
his leg gets broken.
Well, he gets tackled in the game and gets injured to the point that he'll never be able to play football again.
He's like, no.
And it's because he sees Arnie and then the girl Lee, and like so is he heartbroken that he doesn't get to go with the girl that he wants, or that his buddies with the girl that
because I don't think he really cared about the girl that much. Like he was being dared and everything. You know, he's like, oh yeah, I'll go do it. Like it wasn't like he was really fawning over this.
Not only did his leg get broke, then he loses his best friend, and then he doesn't even get to try to date the girl anymore.
Well, I think the part of it may have just been too, though, that not just that the girl turned him down, but that his friend is kind of growing away from him
and he was
unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And so you get that happens. But then, like the movie, and then early on it sets up where Arnie's being picked on by one of the greaser dudes that looks like he's in his late 30s, really.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
With who has big sideburns and long hair and a switchblade.
He's like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
in Days of Confused.
But then you have the element of, like, as Arnie gets more involved with this car, he kind of becomes obsessed with it and, calls it Christine and treats it like a person. And it's almost as important to him as, like, the people in his lives, and his personality changes. Like, the thing that the movie, I think, did that rewatching it, it's like, oh, there's room for this to be done a little bit differently. The car seemingly kills the people without him in it. Most of the time. Like, most of the things are just the car killing people for him as an extension of his personality. But then at the very end scene, when Lee and Dennis are trying to, like, save him and get rid of the car, he's in it full evil with, like, guy liner on and, like, eye makeup and stuff.
They've become one.
So they've become one. So it seems like kind of a jump that the car kills all the people that he doesn't, that just are bullies to him, that he has no affection for, and, the car does that for him. But then when it comes to his actual friends that he cares about, or his girlfriend, then he's the one doing it. So it seems like it would have been more of a, like, if he had been the one driving and killing the people he didn't care about that were just mean to him, and then having more conflict about actually going after, like, his friend and his girlfriend, then that would have probably made it a little bit more resonant. Because as it is, it just kind of jumps to him being evil in makeup, and you're like, oh, wow. Wow. And he, gets killed.
So here's the movie I want to make, thinking about this film. This could be a Knight Rider film. It could be a Christine remake. Loose remake. Essentially, you get a awesome ass martial artist, like maybe like one of the dudes from The Raid or something, and him and the car are almost like one, and so it is like an action film where he's doing. Him in the car going to take out people, or it could be a horror film, but almost like the cape from Doctor Strange, where it has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of choreography of him like jumping and kicking somebody into the street, and then the car runs him over, or him like flipping over the car, and then both like fighting people off. Like, that's the movie I want to see.
Or like somebody takes off running down the road, so the car comes up and slows down enough for him to jump on the hood and ride it like it's a surfboard.
Exactly.
Or
Yeah,
something.
like that's what I was thinking, like Death Proof. You know what I mean? Jump on the back of the front of it and stuff, and they get launched off onto other cars. Like, you could make a really cool new action film if you had the right amount of money.
Well, I think
spinning off this concept of him like kind of being one with the car.
Then we can cast. Well, actually, you know what? Just cast Shia LaBeouf as a lead. And has it be a Camaro, and it's kind of have it be like Transformers, but since they kicked him out of it, it'd be like his.
Well, I think too. I think they said that the movie had like 13 cars that were used as like the different Christines.
Yeah, Carpenter went out and put an ad out for a bunch of them. They modified even the front ends to make them look like certain years and stuff.
And the thing about movies like that is that does drive your budget up, because like the Blues Brothers was a movie that was successful, but they destroyed so many cars, and I think it was kind of costly and prohibited them from making another one of those movies until, unfortunately, John Belushi died.
Man, until everybody
until everybody, you have good actors like John Goodman and stuff in it, but this kind of movie, it just came way too late. And it was after Dan Aykroyd kind of turned the corner in terms of being super funny and relevant.
Yeah, was it Blue Brothers 2000 or something?
Yeah, so that movie was, but like Christine, I mean, a lot of the effects in the movie, like when the car uncrushes and stuff, that still works and looks good.
Yeah.
And being a practical car where they just reverse the footage of crushing it, that looks far preferable to CGI.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
And-
apparently they shot that as like pickups and reshoots at the end because he decided like, hey, we might, we could use this, and it definitely adds a lot. It I don't know, it elevates it to, I don't know, just be a little. It's another cool effect that you don't ever see in other films. It sets it apart.
Because I guess they just had the car like being crushed and recorded it and just reversed the footage.
That's
But
what it
that,
looked like.
I mean, and that's like a simple trick, but that looks so much better than a lot of things they could have tried to do. And they may have had some, custom effects things that were like plastic or rubber or something. But it also just shows a lot of times like Nightmare on Elm Street, when you just have like a wall, it's a sheet, and somebody coming through it looks effective and cool. And looks better than the same thing done CG.
Yeah, I mean, and it gives a little more heart, and I think it's easier to imagine it if it looks, because you just CG, it just sometimes it looks so fake.
And you have to imagine too, like giving the actor a real thing to act off against can, get you a more honest performance than just everything being CG. Because you see some special features or behind the scenes things from current movies, and it shows like what they were shooting, and then you compare it to what the movie actually is. And they're in a scene where they have like a handful of actual practical things in the scene, but it's mostly just green screen, and then green, like they're sitting at a table, there's even green on the table. So there's a lot of movies now where there's very little acting in real spaces. It's mostly all just special effect.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of liked when they do the Hulk scenes, and like especially in Thor Ragnarok, is like it's just Mark Ruffalo running around big Hulk hands. So it's just funny like when they actually do stuff like that where it actually gives them some. But I do think doing the car, you wouldn't get him to. I don't think you would get him to do that nowadays if they did Christine.
Well, it would just be it's one of those things where I don't think that's. So that story was, essentially a nerdy boy finds a car and restores it, and initially it makes him seem a little bit cooler, more edgy, but then it kind of takes over his personality and makes him evil and kill people or attempt to kill people. That story, I don't think there's not a ton of metaphors in it, really.
This is what they show.
Story.
This is the one movie they show young Amish children about the evils of technology.
This car.
I don't know. I mean, this is just kind of like Mean Girls, but with a car and death.
I'm just saying, I don't know. This is a movie you would remake or do again.
I don't know. I mean, they've remade.
You
bunch
remake
of
everything.
Stuff. So I don't know how you could really
You
go
make a cat's nipple.
Yeah, like I don't, I don't know how you can not redo this movie because it's just like a pretty basic high school trope. Like guy gets something, guy gets coolness goes over, bad stuff happens.
What car would they restore now?
Oh, it'd
Would it
be
still
like
be one from the.
I think in order for it to work, it would have to be. But I think they'd probably, if it was in Fast and Furious era, it'd be like a Honda or something.
Well, I mean,
but
too,
don't
though, we've
know now.
touched on the topic, like, currently in today's world, you have a lot of nostalgia for the 80s.
It would be a DeLorean.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
for everything today was nostalgia for the 80s. In the 80s, there was nostalgia for the 50s, and it was a 50s Plymouth. So I think that if you did it today, it probably would be an 80s car.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But the thing is, like 80s Camaros and Mustangs and stuff, even though people love those cars, they aesthetically aren't the greatest looking vehicles.
No, they don't look quite as cool as this car. But what they could do is like do a Mustang 2 with the big Cobra on the hood.
Well, and
that would
two,
be
like I think
ridiculous.
that I'm not sure how many devotees there are to the Christine storyline in the books, and does it have to be the Plymouth? Like I think like a Grand National would be cool, but but those are cars that like car people like that don't have a ton of mainstream appeal. Yeah, but I mean like when it comes to like that story being remade,
Who was it that did Pimp My Ride?
Oh, Exhibit.
Yeah, have a movie about Exhibit.
He'll be the mechanic that owns the shop.
Yeah, I guess that'd be kind of fun.
He's
to
like,
watch.
yo, dog. They got subs.
They got a fishbowl in it, and then it's just like a fish in the back.
Yeah, because like so Pimp My Ride, that show. I remember reading a story about it where there was like multiple people who got their cars stolen
Yeah.
after that show because they put all this stuff in it and didn't put, even if they put security systems, like somebody could still just load it up on a flatbed.
Well, also too, weren't they like not well done? I
Yeah,
heard
there
like
was-
that a lot of the cars had so many problems because they would just rush getting them together just
Yeah.
for the shoot.
And they would put a lot of stuff in it, like, oh, you've got a toaster and a TV and a computer, and it's like, oh man, we heard you like music. We got 5 computers in the trunk.
Oh man.
It's like, so you turn all the computer on, they didn't put it like they just have like the standard alternators. Your car just immediately dies.
Yeah,
Like,
I remember in high school, Mike King wanted to put an NES in his Honda Civic in the glove box. But like back then, there wasn't like little small flat panel monitors really. Like I don't know what monitor he was going to use. Like there was some, but it was
the NES is like so big too. Like glove boxes.
he was wanting to put in there so then you would open up and put the card in.
Yeah.
But half the time they don't work. You know what I mean?
Now you could do the NES Classic for sure.
Yeah.
Well, like when I was in
Raspberry Pi, just something that big.
So like when I was in college, I worked at Circuit City, RIP, and I worked in the car stereo area. And the big deal was the flip out monitor. So it was in the dash, it just looked like a standard CD player. You push a button, then the like fold out 5-inch monitor folds out.
Yeah.
And people love those things. The thing they didn't realize were just because of laws at the time, it didn't allow you to play a movie on it by default in the front seat.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, people would be watching movies while they're driving and getting into wrecks.
Is the law the same?
I think it's all the same.
It is, but people have found ways to get around it.
I mean, the way you put an iPad in.
Well, the way that the car installation area did it was they said, here's the reason why out of the box the standard install does not play while you're driving. But if you sign this waiver, waiving us of all possible legal responsibility, we can rewire this. And they just ground the wire to the because I think you had to ground a wire to the parking brake so that once the parking brake was engaged, it let the player work. So they just reground it to something else, and you could play it while you're driving. And those were all the rage.
And
but
the manufacturers probably did that for a reason too. You know what I mean?
They did it to cover legal liability.
Yeah.
But now new cars, like Courtney's got an Equinox, and it's got the touchscreen and all that in it, and you can watch Netflix on it like while we're driving, and it's in the front.
Yeah, I guess it's like
and it's factory.
I guess that they just have like, does it have a thing that says you shouldn't watch while driving? You have to click OK or something. So they have like these legal things built in to cover that. But when I worked in car stereo, like people put so much terrible stuff in their cars, and like not to get in the nitty gritty.
Oh, but see, what you could do is, and this time instead of like the car killing people, it's just that they have so much crap in their car that when they're getting their toast out of the toaster, they're running over the people that they hate. So it's like it's not even like on purpose. It's just like the douchey guy, and they're getting their toast out and it burns their hand.
I wonder if you were to like remake this movie or this concept, if you can make it something other than a car.
Well, a bike's not going to work. Like a bicycle. I mean, I guess you could use like a boat.
No, I think it needs to be a car.
Yeah, I think a car.
I want to watch the boat. Why is there a boat coming down the street?
Or your drone.
Yeah.
Or like, maybe the Christine is a modern car that's electric, and then it's able to hack into other cars and stuff. But back to the movie. So the overall movie, like I said, I do think that like the friendship between like Arnie and Dennis is a very bright spot in the movie, because that's not something you saw a ton in movies from that era. There's kind of like a healthy male relationship where they're friends, at least at the beginning.
It makes it feel like more of a Stephen King creation than a John Carpenter, because the reliance on relationships and that building. John Carpenter definitely relies more on kind of atmosphere and mood to sell his films, and a lot of times there are minimalistic relationships, you know what I mean, like, or the thing, like kind of minimal dialogue. I know there's a lot of talking, but for some reason it seemed like it's minimal dialogue, you know what I mean? It's not about building the characters' friendships. It's about moving things forward and establishing things. So this definitely, it still feels very much like a Stephen King creation.
Well, if you have long scenes or just the car killing people, there's not a ton of dialogue in that.
The scenes are pretty good too, even though it's an older film. Not saying anything about this, but like we're so used to seeing so much car action now. They're at least not lame. You know what I mean? Like the explosion and being on fire and stuff. Like, granted, they're not. It's not Fast and the Furious where it's busting through a 50-store window, a window on the 50th floor going on the expressway. But still, they're not boring.
They're not jumping it from one tower in Dubai to some other building.
No, but they're not boring either. And I don't know. I like the way a lot of those are handled in this film.
And like the score for it, so a big thing a lot of people remember a lot of John Carpenter movies for, even more than the movie sometimes, is the score, because like the Fog score I think might be better than the movie, or at least like
it's cooler.
It's far more memorable.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, he did the music for it, but it's not super memorable. Like it's there, but like the theme is pretty cool. But it's nothing that is on the level of Halloween or The Fog or Escape from New York. Really, still memorable. Still good, and it kind of goes along with that era.
And he seems to have some reverence for this film, considering that music video he did.
Yeah,
the Christine one recently.
Yeah, and overall, like the movie is enjoyable, and Harry Dean Stanton shows up as the cop.
Yes, yeah.
And Harry Dean Stanton is awesome.
Yeah, when I was thinking about recasting people, I was like, I don't know how you recast him. I can't think of who to recast.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but but Harry Dean Stanton, like he shows up, and he's in the movie for a little bit, and he shows up and does a good job. Like everybody's interesting in the movie. Like the only thing that doesn't have much fleshed out element to it is some of the goons that pick on him, like the henchmen.
But they
kids.
never do.
But they're all just fodder for the car at some point. But yeah, I mean, I think I guess we can start kind of wrapping up what our thoughts on it are. Like to me, it's an enjoyable movie. It's not one of Carpenter's like top 5, but it's still enjoyable, and it's something that you can check out and watch and not be super bored. Yeah, but it doesn't really stack up to like Escape from New York and The Thing and Halloween. I mean, I guess stylistically or tonally, I guess it's probably more similar to Halloween than because it's not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is supernatural though, but it's really nowhere. It's nothing similar to The Thing.
I mean, it's just somewhat similar in the stalking element.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Only this time, sometimes you're kind of rooting for the car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in this film.
Well, if a dude's pulling a switchblade at school, he's
Yeah.
probably done some pretty bad stuff too.
Yeah.
And threatened to kill people or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like in terms of a score out of 10, so Derek, where would you give this?
I mean, it's like a 6.5. I mean, it's good. I really enjoy it. Anytime it's on, like I'll watch it. It's not going to be something it's not a go-to movie. It's not like I really want to watch something, so let's watch Christine. But if it's like, I always talk about AMC Fear Fest because this is one of the movies used to be on there all the time. Like if it's on that, or I have it at home, like if it's closer to Halloween, like I'll watch it, but it's not like high up on a priority to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sean, where would you?
Yeah, I would probably somewhere in the same ballpark. I might give it a 7. Like, not one of his I'm going to revisit a lot because he has such a large and high quality catalog.
Yeah.
Not saying it's all high quality,
Yeah.
but he has so many high quality films.
It's kind of like with both of them too, though. It's like with Stephen King and John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Even though it's a cross between them both, it's like there's other stuff
Yeah,
that
this
both of them have
It's
their
not.
names
It's not the
attached to.
it's not the peak
Yeah.
output from either.
Yeah, but it's not bad.
It's not the but it's not terrible.
But
either.
even that, you get something pretty good. And that's what I love about John Carpenter is, and it's okay now. I get, when you're in the moment, like even now, like when superhero films come out, you know what I mean? It's easy to be like, no, this is not as good as this film.
Yeah.
Every superhero film should be better than the one that just came out. You know what I mean? Like now that we have some distance from these John Carpenter films, it's totally cool to see like, hey, I'm going to watch this one I don't ever hardly watch and get some enjoyment out of it. Like it's okay that it's not up there with Halloween or The Thing or Escape from New York. It's totally fine because it's still John Carpenter and it's still a quality product. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some definite enjoyment and value out of that. And I like that he has just a wide breadth of horror films. It's a shame he got kind of pigeonholed into that stuff because I don't think he really wanted to necessarily, to only do that, at least from what I understand. Am I wrong in that? Has he talked about that before?
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of got stuck doing horror films, and like you saw him kind of branch out because some of his movies were,
Yeah, Big Trouble is a little bit different.
yeah, and even like Escape from New York is, based on a lot of westerns,
Yeah.
and even has Lee Van Cleef and other people.
Yeah,
in
and
it,
then
so.
he did the Elvis biopic with Kurt Russell.
yeah.
Like, but once Halloween took off and some things really started happening for him, he kind of went down that path. But yeah, I enjoy the film, and it's pretty solid. Better than a lot of kind of things you think of as B or C tier horror films of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, because I think I'll echo similar thoughts. I think that it's a more watchable movie for a general audience than In the Mouth of Madness
Yeah.
or Prince of Darkness
Yeah.
or some of his more, his Apocalypse trilogy. Like, I think that like his later work, I think this is probably a little bit more watchable for a general audience. Just because, it's kind of a classic story. There's a lot of movies about like a boy in a car or something like that. Because even Transformers was kind of the recent movies. The first one, at least, kind of had the element of
This.
it was about a boy in a car. Granted, it was just a transformer, not a car that killed people.
We haven't had any movies where boys have sex with cars, though.
Not yet.
I was waiting for that to happen to Christine. I was like, did I miss that on the TV edit?
They shit on the dashboard.
Yeah. He said, they shit on the dashboard of my car, Ma.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, like, overall, it's in terms of the John Carpenter filmography, it's not like in my top 5, but it's still an enjoyable enough movie. And it's nowhere near as cheesy as some of the 90s Stephen King adaptations.
No, yeah.
And the John Carpenter stuff, like, some of his movies people don't like what's the Mars one?
Mission to Mars?
Ghost of Mars.
Ghost of Mars.
Like, that one I rewatched somewhat recently, and that one's a very 90s movie. It has, like, I think Jason Statham's in it, and it has, like, some people, but, Ice Cube's in it. It's just, at a certain point, I think his the things that he looked for and a lot of his stylistic choices kind of got out of step with the general public. I'm really interested to see him do something again, because the last movie he made was The Ward. But I'd really be interested to see him make another feature at this point, if that's something he's even interested in. Like, maybe for him, like, just doing some guest director spots on TV series would be a way to go.
Yeah.
Because you don't have this super huge investment, but you can go in and put your stamp on it.
Isn't Del Toro doing a new series on Netflix?
Yeah, an anthology series.
Yeah.
I think Del Toro's going to direct it, too. But
I think he was going to have other directors come out, I think. But,
Yeah, I don't
he's
remember all the news.
Apparently, Carpenter's been hanging out with Blumhouse.
Yeah.
They could maybe work him into doing something small.
Well, there was some TV series that there was news that he was going to direct some episodes of it, I think.
Yeah.
But like something like Legion, they've had directors come in and do episodes. I think that he could do something on a show like that. But yeah, like, I'm interested to see if he ever gets back to doing any more directing beyond just music videos. But, Christine, I would think, like a 6.5, 7. Mm-hmm. It's an enjoyable enough movie. It's not one of his all-time classics, but there is enough there to go back and rewatch it if you haven't seen it in a few years, or if you haven't watched it all the way through, you've only seen the TV cuts. I would actually recommend buying like a Blu-ray or DVD or something, not watching the Crackle version with ads, because it does break it up a lot.
Yeah.
But, it's a movie that you can go rewatch, and there is enjoyment to be found. It does have like a relationship between like some of the core characters that makes it more than just, a slasher movie or something like that. And the score is, Carpenter. It's not one of his most classic scores, but it's still from the era when he was kind of in the zone on music. So if you like his other scores and other things, then you'll enjoy that. The performances were good enough. I just feel like they could have done a little bit more with the evolution of Arnie as he became evil, because it kind of just flips the switch, because he didn't even know about it killing some of the people, and then he's in the car full evil, try to kill his girlfriend and his best friend. So I think there could be a little bit more build up to that. But beyond that, it's an enjoyable enough movie. It's very much an 80s movie.
It feels like it switches the main character, so then you don't really know what is going on with him.
Yeah.
You start following
because
his
Dennis is
friend,
kind of out of
Dennis.
the picture for a while,
Yeah.
and then he comes back. So it kind of switches protagonist, which movies have done that before, and a lot of movies have done that successfully. It just felt like this one there could have been a little bit more build up of either one, leading up to the end. But yeah, like an enjoyable enough movie, something to check out. Recommend to go to watch. So I guess that'll wrap up our discussion of Christine, the 1983 John Carpenter Stephen King joint. But if you're listening via iTunes, you can do us a huge favor, leave a review that helps other people find the podcast. You can find all the stuff we're doing at houseofavastore.com. Find links there to all the social media accounts. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all those places. You can find links at the website. And then if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me, I guess, just on Instagram at the William Caps.
You can find me at MetaWorld Derek.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
And that'll bring this episode of the House by Vegas Horror Podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.
House by the Video.